The Atlanta sky bled amber as the sun dipped behind the skyline, painting the streets in a fading glow. Shadows stretched long across the pavement, swallowing the edges of the quiet suburb. At the center of it all, a midnight blue Lamborghini Urus prowled down the road, its engine a muted roar beneath the bassline of Malik Thompson's playlist. Inside the car, Malik adjusted his gold wristwatch, a gift from his father, its polished surface flashing like a warning. His designer hoodie was tossed over the passenger seat, sleeves rolled to his elbows. Relaxed but alert, he navigated the turns with the ease of someone who knew every crack in the pavement. To the neighbors, he was just another kid from the block. To the two officers idling in their cruiser ahead, he was a question mark. The Lamborghini's windows were tinted just dark enough to hide Malik's face, but not the car's price tag. As he passed the patrol car, the officers' heads swiveled in unison. One chewed his lip, the other drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. Neither spoke, but the air between them crackled with the same unspoken thought, this doesn't add up. The cruiser's engine growled to life. No sirens yet, just the slow creep of headlights tailing Malik's Lamborghini. Officer Grayson squinted at the license plate. "Run the tags," he muttered. His partner, Reyes, scoffed. "Waste of time. Kid like that? Either stolen or drug money." Malik signaled left, oblivious. The officers followed, close enough to count the stitches in his leather seats. Grayson's knuckles whitened around the wheel. "Look at him. No job, no reason for a ride like that." Reyes smirked. "Bet he's got a record." They hadn't checked. Didn't need to. Their hunches were already writing the story. The Lamborghini slowed at a stoplight. Malik tapped his fingers to the beat, unaware of the cruiser's flashing lights flickering on behind him. "Would you pull over if you saw those lights? Or would you sense something was off?" The patrol car's lights splashed red and blue across the Lamborghini's sleek frame. Malik's fingers froze on the steering wheel. He checked his mirrors, no swerve, no violation. Just the weight of two officers stepping out, hands resting on their holsters. He rolled down the window. "Evening, officers." His voice was steady, but his pulse wasn't. Grayson leaned in, blocking the fading sunlight. "License and registration." Malik moved deliberately, wallet open, papers ready, but Reyes was already circling the car like a shark. "Step out," Grayson barked. "No, please, no explanation." Malik kept his hands visible as he exited, the Lamborghini's door thudding shut behind him. The officers exchanged a glance. Too calm. Too compliant. Wrong. Reyes yanked open the driver's door. "You got anything in here we should know about? Drugs? Cash?" Malik's jaw tightened. "No, sir." Grayson smirked. "We'll see. What would you do if you were Malik? Comply? Or demand a reason for the search?" Reyes' flashlight beam cut through the car's interior, lingering on the glove compartment, the floor mats. Then, a pause. Malik watched as the officer's hand dipped toward his own pocket, not the car's. A flash of plastic. A Ziploc bag, tucked quick beneath the seat. Grayson gripped Malik's shoulder, spinning him toward the curb. "Hands behind your back." The cuffs bit into Malik's wrists as Reyes leaned in, breath hot against his ear. "Flashy car, no job. You boys never learn." Malik didn't struggle. Just lifted his chin and locked eyes with Grayson. "You're gonna regret this." The officers laughed. They didn't hear the Rolls-Royce's engine purring 3 blocks away. What would you say in Malik's position? The officers' flashlights carved jagged beams through the Lamborghini's interior, turning the car into a crime scene before Malik's eyes. Reyes tore through the glove compartment, scattering papers and gum wrappers across the leather seats. Grayson loomed over Malik, his breath fogging the air between them. "Where's the stash, kid? You're not slick enough to hide it forever." Malik kept his voice flat. There's nothing here. We'll see. Reyes knelt, ripping the floor mats free. His flashlight paused on a loose panel beneath the driver's seat. A flick of his wrist, plastic crinkled. A Ziploc bag, half hidden under the mat. Reyes held it up to the light, smirking. Gotcha. Malik's stomach dropped. That wasn't there. He glimpsed Reyes' sleeve brushing his own pant leg moments earlier, the quick, practiced motion of a man planting proof. You put that there, Malik said, louder now, you just. Grayson shoved him against the car's hood, metal digging into his ribs. Watch your mouth, boy. Malik's cheek pressed against the cold Lamborghini emblem as Reyes leaned in, lips grazing his ear. Flashy car, no job. You kids never learn. The words were a hiss, meant for him alone. Malik clenched his jaw. Record everything. Stay calm. His phone was still filming from the cup holder. Grayson's cuffs snapped shut around Malik's wrists, the bite of steel grounding him in the surreality of the moment. Reyes yanked him upright, shoving him toward the patrol car. Malik stumbled but didn't fall. You're making a mistake, he said, voice steady. Save it for the judge, Reyes sneered. Malik glanced back at his Lamborghini. The Ziploc bag lay on the driver's seat now, a prop in a staged crime. His phone's camera light blinked faintly, still recording. They didn't even check. As Grayson shoved him into the cruiser, Malik turned his head, locking eyes with the officer. You're gonna regret this. The words weren't a threat. They were a promise. Reyes laughed. Yeah. Tell your lawyer to bring tissues. Neither noticed the sedan parked across the street, its dashcam trained on the scene. Or the tech billionaire already dialing his legal team 3 blocks away. The officer's flashlights carved jagged beams through the Lamborghini's interior, turning the car into a crime scene before Malik's eyes. Reyes tore through the glove compartment, scattering papers and gum wrappers across the leather seats. Grayson loomed over Malik, his breath fogging the air between them. Where's the stash, kid? You're not slick enough to hide it forever. Malik kept his voice flat. There's nothing here. We'll see. Reyes knelt, ripping the floor mats free. His flashlight paused on a loose panel beneath the driver's seat. A flick of his wrist, plastic crinkled. A Ziploc bag, half hidden under the mat. Reyes held it up to the light, smirking. Gotcha. Malik's stomach dropped. That wasn't there. He glimpsed Reyes' sleeve brushing his own pant leg moments earlier, the quick, practiced motion of a man planting proof. You put that there, Malik said, louder now. You just. Grayson shoved him against the car's hood, metal digging into his ribs. Watch your mouth, boy. Malik's cheek pressed against the cold Lamborghini emblem as Reyes leaned in, lips grazing his ear. Flashy car, no job. You kids never learn. The words were a hiss, meant for him alone. Malik clenched his jaw. Asterisk record everything. Stay calm, asterisk his phone was still filming from the cup holder. Grayson's cuffs snapped shut around Malik's wrists, the bite of steel grounding him in the surreality of the moment. Reyes yanked him upright, shoving him toward the patrol car. Malik stumbled but didn't fall. You're making a mistake, he said, voice steady. Save it for the judge, Reyes sneered. Malik glanced back at his Lamborghini. The Ziploc bag lay on the driver's seat now, a prop in a staged crime. His phone's camera light blinked faintly, still recording. They didn't even check. As Grayson shoved him into the cruiser, Malik turned his head, locking eyes with the officer. You're gonna regret this. The words weren't a threat. They were a promise. Reyes laughed. Yeah. Tell your lawyer to bring tissues. Neither noticed the sedan parked across the street, its dashcam trained on the scene. Or the tech billionaire already dialing his legal team 3 blocks away. The tableau of the traffic stop remained, a scene caught in the amber glow of the streetlights and the harsh glare of the patrol cars' flashing lights. Grayson and Reyes, their initial bravado beginning to fray at the edges, leaned against their cruiser. They exchanged terse comments, their voices tight, the earlier swagger replaced by a growing unease. The rhythmic pulse of red and blue continued to strobe across the scene, an insistent declaration of authority that now seemed more like a nervous tick. The air itself seemed to vibrate with a tension that went beyond the immediate confrontation. Then, a subtle but profound shift in the soundscape. The grating whine of the cruiser's engine, the crackle of the police radio, the distant sirens, all these sounds began to recede, replaced by a deep, resonant purr that seemed to emanate from the very core of the street. It was a sound that spoke of immense power, of effortless control, of a force that demanded attention without resorting to shouting or threats. The officers, their senses heightened, felt the change in their bones before they consciously registered it. From the darkness at the end of the street, a shape emerged, sleek and black and impossibly long. As it drew closer, it resolved itself into a Rolls-Royce Phantom, its polished surface gleaming like obsidian, reflecting the distorted lights of the police vehicles in an almost menacing way. The car moved with a liquid grace, its tires barely disturbing the silence of the night, as if it were gliding on a cushion of air. It was an apparition of wealth and power, an intrusion of a different world into the mundane reality of their patrol. The Phantom halted a respectful distance from the chaotic scene, its engine idling with a restrained power that thrummed through the asphalt and into the soles of the officers' boots. A uniformed chauffeur, his movements precise and economical, emerged from the driver's seat with an almost balletic grace. He moved with a silent efficiency that spoke of years of training, his white gloves immaculate as he rounded the car and opened the rear passenger door. From the depths of the Phantom, Donovan Thompson stepped out. He was a striking figure, a man who carried himself with an air of quiet command. His tailored suit, the fabric dark and rich, fit him perfectly, emphasizing his broad shoulders and upright posture. Even in the dim light, the officers could discern the quality of the fabric, the sharp crease of the trousers, the subtle gleam of his cufflinks. He moved with a deliberate, unhurried pace, his posture ramrod straight, his head held high. His gaze, sharp and intelligent, swept across the scene, taking in every detail with a single, comprehensive glance. There was no anger in his expression, no outrage, only a cool, assessing intelligence that made the officers feel like specimens under a microscope. Two individuals emerged from the car behind him, their attire and demeanor marking them as high-powered attorneys. They carried themselves with an air of quiet authority, their expressions focused and determined. They clutched slim briefcases, the leather smooth and expensive. Behind them stood two imposing figures in dark suits, their muscular builds and watchful eyes identifying them as private security. Their presence added another layer of unspoken menace, a silent promise of swift and decisive action if required. The casual banter between Grayson and Reyes died completely, the words choked off in their throats. Their cocky grins dissolved, replaced by expressions of bewilderment and a growing sense of dread. The power dynamic of the situation had undergone a seismic shift in a matter of seconds. The arrival of Donovan Thompson and his entourage had shattered their illusion of control, revealing the fragility of their authority. They were no longer dealing with a kid in a fancy car, they were facing something far larger, far more complex, and infinitely more dangerous. Donovan Thompson advanced toward them with a measured stride, his gaze never wavering. There was no anger in his expression, no shouting, no dramatic pronouncements. Instead, he radiated a calm, implacable authority that seemed to push back against the chaos and injustice of the scene. It was the quiet power of a man who was accustomed to being obeyed, a man who knew that his presence alone was enough to command respect. Donovan Thompson remained a study in quiet authority, his very stillness radiating a power that seemed to press down on the scene. His gaze, sharp and discerning, moved slowly across the tableau, taking in every detail, the flashing lights of the cruiser, the rigid posture of the officers, the distant glow of the city skyline. It was the gaze of a man accustomed to control, a man who could dissect a situation in seconds and anticipate its every potential outcome. Grayson and Reyes, the architects of this escalating situation, found themselves pinned beneath that gaze, their earlier bravado dissolving like mist in the morning sun. Grayson, the senior officer, felt a knot tightening in his stomach, a sensation that mingled fear and a growing sense of helplessness. He swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry, his hand twitching nervously towards his holster before he consciously forced it to remain still. Reyes, younger and more impulsive, shifted his weight from foot to foot, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape route. He felt a rising tide of panic, a sense that the situation was slipping rapidly beyond his grasp. They were beginning to understand the gravity of their misjudgment. This wasn't just a routine traffic stop gone slightly awry, it was a collision with a force they were ill-equipped to handle. The arrival of Donovan Thompson and his entourage had ripped away the illusion of control, exposing the vulnerability of their position. The questions swirled in their minds, unanswered and ominous. Who was this man? What was the extent of his power? And what consequences awaited them for their actions? The answer, though they didn't yet fully grasp it, lay in the extraordinary background of Donovan Thompson. He was a self-made titan of the tech industry, a visionary who had built a global empire from the ground up. His name was spoken with reverence in boardrooms and whispered with awe in the halls of power. He was a billionaire many times over, his wealth measured not just in dollars but in influence, in connections, in the ability to move mountains with a phone call. His network stretched across the globe, encompassing titans of industry, political heavyweights, and legal powerhouses. He was a man who could command the attention of presidents and CEOs, a man whose word carried weight in the highest echelons of society. But beneath the veneer of power and success beat the heart of a father, a man whose love for his son was fierce and unwavering. His relationship with Malik was a source of immense pride and joy. He had poured his wisdom and experience into raising Malik, instilling in him the values of hard work, integrity, and social responsibility. He had also armed him with the knowledge and understanding to navigate a world that often judged unfairly. The news of Malik's arrest had ignited a cold fury within Donovan, a resolve that burned with the intensity of a laser. He saw in the officer's actions not just a personal injustice against his son but a manifestation of the systemic biases that plagued society. He knew that he had to act, not just for Malik but for all those who had been subjected to similar treatment. As Donovan moved closer, his attorneys flanking him like silent guardians, the officers felt the weight of their actions pressing down on them. They were no longer the hunters, they had become the hunted. The situation had spiraled out of their control, and they were now facing a reckoning. The evidence against them was mounting, undeniable and irrefutable. The body cam footage from their cruiser captured every moment of the encounter, their words, their actions, their biases laid bare for all to see. The dashcam footage from the nearby sedan provided another angle, another perspective on their misconduct. And Malik's phone, still recording from the cup holder, had documented their every move, their attempt to fabricate evidence, their casual disregard for justice. The realization of the impending legal and public storm crashed down on them with the force of a tidal wave. Their careers, their reputations, their lives, all hung in the balance, threatened by the consequences of their actions. The immediate aftermath of Donovan Thompson's arrival was a study in contrasts, the lingering tension of the traffic stop juxtaposed against the sudden, decisive actions of his legal team. The air crackled with a sense of transition, the shift from a localized incident to a potentially landmark case. Donovan's attorneys, their movements sharp and purposeful, took command of the situation with an efficiency that spoke of years of high-stakes litigation. Their voices, calm but firm, cut through the lingering confusion, their words carrying the weight of authority and expertise. Their first priority was securing Malik's release, a process they navigated with swift precision. They presented the assembled evidence, the damning footage from Malik's phone, the revealing dashcam recording from the nearby sedan, and their own meticulous observations of the officer's conduct, to the precinct captain. The captain, initially inclined to defend his officers, found himself confronted with irrefutable proof of their misconduct. The planted evidence, the casual yet insidious racism woven into their words, the blatant disregard for established procedure, it was all there, captured in stark and undeniable detail. The weight of this evidence, coupled with the imposing presence of Donovan Thompson and his legal team, left the captain with no viable option but to order Malik's immediate release. However, Donovan Thompson's objective extended far beyond simply securing his son's freedom. He was driven by a deeper sense of justice, a determination to expose the systemic flaws that had enabled this injustice to occur. He wanted to ensure that the officers involved were held fully accountable for their actions and that the incident served as a catalyst for meaningful change within the police department and the wider community. Even as Malik was being processed for release, Donovan's attorneys were already laying the strategic groundwork for a comprehensive and far-reaching investigation. They initiated the formal legal process by filing detailed complaints with the police department's Internal Affairs Division, demanding a thorough and impartial review of every aspect of the incident. Their complaint went beyond the immediate actions of the officers, calling for an examination of the department's policies, training procedures, and disciplinary practices. Simultaneously, Donovan's team reached out to prominent civil rights lawyers, attorneys renowned for their unwavering commitment to justice and their formidable track record in cases involving police misconduct and racial profiling. These lawyers, seasoned veterans of countless legal battles against systemic injustice, recognized the profound significance of Malik's case. They understood that it had the potential to expose deep-seated problems within the criminal justice system and to ignite a powerful movement for change. They immediately agreed to join the legal team, bringing their expertise and passion to the fight. The investigation process unfolded with remarkable speed and intensity. The police department, facing mounting pressure from Donovan Thompson's relentless legal team and the rapidly growing public attention, launched an internal inquiry. The body cam footage from the officer's cruiser became the centerpiece of this investigation, its every frame dissected and analyzed with meticulous care. Every word spoken, every action taken, every inconsistency in the officer's accounts was scrutinized under the microscope of legal inquiry. Meanwhile, the civil rights lawyers conducted their own parallel and independent investigation, leaving no stone unturned in their pursuit of the truth. They meticulously interviewed witnesses who had observed the traffic stop, gathering additional evidence that corroborated Malik's account and further undermined the officer's credibility. They delved into the officer's past records, seeking any indication of prior misconduct or bias. They began to construct a compelling narrative that would not only hold the individual officers accountable but also expose the deeper, systemic issues within the police department that contributed to the injustice. The news of the incident, initially confined to eyewitness accounts and social media whispers, began to spread like wildfire. Those who had witnessed the traffic stop shared their experiences, their voices rising in a chorus of outrage and disbelief. The videos captured by Malik's phone and the dashcam, raw and unfiltered, were circulated widely online, their impact amplified by each share and retweet. The images of the young black man being unjustly detained, the casual arrogance of the officers, the blatant planting of evidence, these images burned into the public consciousness, sparking immediate anger, concern, and a growing demand for justice. The combined weight of Donovan Thompson's formidable legal team, the irrefutable evidence meticulously gathered, and the steadily intensifying wave of public outrage compelled the police department to initiate a formal response. In a hastily convened press conference, the police chief, his demeanor a mix of defensiveness and resignation, announced the immediate suspension of officers Grayson and Reyes. The announcement was presented as a decisive action, a demonstration of the department's commitment to accountability. However, this carefully constructed narrative was met with widespread skepticism. Many perceived the suspension as a calculated public relations maneuver, a superficial attempt to appease the growing outcry rather than a genuine commitment to justice. The fact that the officers were suspended with pay became a focal point of contention, fueling the perception that the system was inherently biased, protecting its own while shielding them from meaningful consequences. This decision deepened the existing distrust between the community and law enforcement, reinforcing the belief that true accountability was elusive. Recognizing the limitations of the local response and sensing the volatile public mood, the civil rights lawyers strategically escalated the legal battle by contacting the Department of Justice. They presented their meticulously compiled findings, emphasizing the undeniable evidence of racial profiling and evidence tampering, and forcefully argued that the case warranted a comprehensive federal investigation. They framed the incident not as an isolated occurrence but as a symptom of systemic issues within the police department and the wider criminal justice system. The Department of Justice, facing mounting pressure from both the relentless legal team and a growing coalition of community groups, civil rights organizations, and political figures, ultimately agreed to open a formal federal inquiry into the incident. This decision elevated the case to a national stage, bringing the full weight and authority of the federal government down upon the police department and the individual officers involved. The scope of the investigation expanded significantly, extending beyond the immediate actions of Grayson and Reyes to encompass a broader examination of the department's policies, procedures, and practices. Federal investigators delved into past complaints of racial bias filed against the department and its officers, meticulously reviewed training materials and protocols, and rigorously examined the department's disciplinary records to identify any patterns of misconduct or leniency. The announcement of the federal investigation sent shockwaves through the community, the police department, and the city's political establishment. It signaled that the incident was being taken with the utmost seriousness at the highest levels of the legal system and that there was a genuine possibility of systemic reform. However, it also triggered anxiety and resistance from those who benefited from the status quo or feared the disruption of established power structures. The public reaction to the case was intense, complex, and multifaceted, reflecting the deep divisions and simmering tensions within society. Social media platforms transformed into virtual battlegrounds for debate, with hashtags related to the incident trending nationally for days and even weeks. People from all walks of life shared their personal experiences with law enforcement, their voices adding to the growing chorus of outrage, frustration, and pain. News outlets, both local and national, provided extensive coverage of the story, with nightly broadcasts dissecting every development, analyzing every legal maneuver, and amplifying the voices of those affected. Community groups, civil rights organizations, and grassroots movements organized a series of protests, rallies, and demonstrations, demanding justice for Malik and calling for an end to racial profiling and police brutality. These demonstrations drew diverse crowds, united in their condemnation of injustice and their demand for systemic change. The protests were largely peaceful and disciplined, but the undercurrent of anger, frustration, and righteous indignation was palpable, a testament to the deep-seated wounds that the incident had reopened. The case ignited a national conversation about race, policing, accountability, and justice. Pundits, commentators, academics, and activists weighed in with their perspectives and analyses, contributing to a complex and often contentious dialogue. The debate raged on across television screens, radio waves, and online forums, exposing deep divisions within society but also highlighting a growing awareness of systemic problems and a rising demand for meaningful change. The immediate furor surrounding Malik's arrest eventually subsided, as news cycles moved on and other events captured the public's attention. However, the ripples of the incident continued to spread, leaving an enduring impact on the individuals involved, the community, and the ongoing conversation about race and justice in America. For Malik, the experience was profoundly transformative. He emerged from the ordeal with a newfound understanding of the complexities of the world and the injustices that persisted beneath the surface of everyday life. The trauma of the arrest, the humiliation of being wrongly accused, and the weight of public attention left scars that would take time to heal. However, it also ignited within him a burning desire to use his platform and privilege to advocate for change. He became a vocal supporter of social justice initiatives, speaking out against racial profiling and police brutality, and working to bridge the divide between communities and law enforcement. Donovan Thompson, while relieved that his son had been exonerated, remained deeply troubled by the incident. It reinforced his awareness of the systemic inequities that continued to plague society, even for those with wealth and influence. He redoubled his philanthropic efforts, focusing on organizations that work to promote racial justice, support underprivileged communities, and reform the criminal justice system. He also used his considerable influence to push for legislative changes that would increase police accountability and address racial bias in law enforcement. The officers, Grayson and Reyes, faced the full weight of the legal and public backlash. The federal investigation, fueled by the overwhelming evidence and the intense public scrutiny, led to their indictment on charges of civil rights violations, evidence tampering, and obstruction of justice. The ensuing trial was a media circus, with every detail dissected and debated on national television. The officers' defense, which attempted to portray their actions as a simple misunderstanding, crumbled under the weight of the evidence. They were ultimately convicted and sentenced to significant prison terms, their careers and reputations shattered beyond repair. The police department underwent a period of intense scrutiny and reform. The incident forced a long-overdue reckoning with its past practices and policies. A new police chief was appointed, tasked with implementing sweeping changes to address racial bias, increase transparency, and improve community relations. New training programs were introduced, emphasizing de-escalation techniques, implicit bias awareness, and the importance of respecting the rights of all citizens. The department also established a civilian oversight board to provide community input and ensure accountability. The broader societal impact of the case was significant and far-reaching. It served as a powerful reminder of the persistent problem of racial profiling and police misconduct in America. It reignited the national conversation about race, justice, and equality, forcing a long and difficult examination of uncomfortable truths. It also inspired a new wave of activism, as individuals and communities across the country mobilized to demand change. The case became a rallying cry for those who had long been marginalized and silenced, a symbol of hope that justice was possible, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. It demonstrated the power of collective action, the importance of speaking truth to power, and the potential for individuals to make a difference. The legal battles concluded, the news cycle moved on, but for Malik Thompson, the aftermath of the incident was a journey of profound self-discovery and emotional reckoning. The initial shock and anger gave way to a complex mix of emotions, lingering trauma, a heightened awareness of injustice, and a newfound sense of purpose. He replayed the events of the traffic stop in his mind, the images burned into his memory, the officer's aggressive demeanor, the cold bite of the handcuffs, the casual racism of their words. He grappled with the realization that his privilege and his father's wealth had been the primary factors that ensured his safety and justice, a stark contrast to the experiences of countless others who faced similar injustices without such resources. Malik sought solace and guidance in conversations with his father, who provided unwavering support and a framework for understanding the systemic issues at play. Donovan encouraged Malik to use his experience as a catalyst for positive change, to become a voice for those who had been silenced and marginalized. Donovan Thompson's role extended far beyond the immediate legal fight. He channeled his resources and influence into philanthropic endeavors aimed at addressing the root causes of racial injustice. He supported organizations that work to reform the criminal justice system, promote educational opportunities in underserved communities, and foster dialogue between law enforcement and the communities they served. He also became a vocal advocate for policy changes that would increase police accountability and address implicit bias in law enforcement. He used his platform to speak out against racial profiling and police brutality, challenging those in power to confront the uncomfortable truths about systemic racism in America. The consequences for officers Grayson and Reyes were severe and far-reaching. The federal investigation, meticulously conducted and fueled by the weight of public scrutiny, left no room for doubt regarding their misconduct. The evidence against them was overwhelming: the body cam footage, the dashcam recording, Malik's own video, and the corroborating testimony of witnesses. They were indicted on multiple charges, including civil rights violations, evidence tampering, and obstruction of justice. The trial that followed became a flashpoint in the national debate about police accountability and racial bias. The officers' defense, a desperate attempt to portray their actions as a misunderstanding or a lapse in judgment, was dismantled piece by piece by the prosecution's relentless presentation of the evidence. The jury, moved by the undeniable truth and the gravity of the injustice, found them guilty on all counts. They were sentenced to significant prison terms, their careers and reputations irrevocably destroyed. The verdict sent a powerful message, that those who abuse their power and violate the public trust would be held accountable, regardless of their position or authority. The impact of the case extended beyond the immediate legal ramifications. It served as a stark reminder of the persistent and pervasive nature of racial profiling and police misconduct in America. It reignited the long-simmering national conversation about race, justice, and equality, forcing a long-overdue examination of uncomfortable truths and systemic inequities. The story of Malik Thompson became a symbol of both the injustice that many faced and the potential for change. It highlighted the importance of courage in the face of adversity, the resilience of the human spirit, and the power of collective action to demand accountability. As the dust settled, the echoes of the incident reverberated through the community and the nation. It prompted conversations in homes, classrooms, and town halls. It inspired activism and advocacy. It challenged individuals and institutions to confront their own biases and to work towards creating a more just and equitable society. In closing, this narrative is a testament to the enduring fight for justice. It is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, courage can prevail, resilience can triumph, and the pursuit of equality must never cease. As we get ready to finish this story, it's important to go back to the most important parts. These are the parts that made us angry, got us talking, and made us want things to change. Let's start with how the story began. It was a nice evening in the suburbs, and Malik Thompson was driving his Lamborghini Urus. The car was a symbol of his success and his dad's pride in him. Malik seemed relaxed and confident as he drove. But then we see two police officers. Right away, they think something is wrong. They judge Malik because of his car. They decide to follow him and eventually pull him over, even though he hasn't done anything wrong. This is the first moment where we see how unfair things can be. Think about how Malik feels. He's calm, but you can tell he's also tense and worried. He knows that the officers are suspicious of him for no good reason. We, as the audience, feel his frustration and anger. Then the situation gets worse. The officers search Malik's car without permission. One of them even plants drugs in the car to make Malik look guilty. This is a shocking moment. It shows how far some people will go to abuse their power. Malik is arrested and handcuffed. The officers make racist comments, revealing their true feelings. This is a powerful and disturbing scene. But then, everything changes. Malik's father, Donovan Thompson, arrives. He's a wealthy and powerful man, and he brings his lawyers and security team. The officers are suddenly less confident. Donovan's arrival shows us how important power and influence can be in our society. If Malik's father hadn't been wealthy, would the outcome have been the same? This is a difficult question to ask. The story then focuses on the legal battle. This story isn't just about one incident. It's about larger issues of prejudice, abuse of power, and the fight for fairness. It asks us to think about our own role in creating a more just world. This story forces us to confront some difficult truths about our society. It asks us, why did the officers automatically assume Malik was guilty? What does this say about how we often judge people based on how they look? How does power and wealth affect who gets justice? These are not easy questions, but they are important ones. We all have a role to play in creating a more fair and just society. Think about your own life. Have you ever witnessed or experienced prejudice? Have you ever felt unfairly judged? It takes courage to stand up against injustice, even in small ways. It might mean speaking out when you hear someone make a racist joke. It might mean supporting organizations that fight for equality. It might mean simply being more aware of your own biases. Malik's story shows us that change is possible. But it requires all of us to be involved. We can't just sit on the sidelines and hope that things will get better on their own. I'm curious to know where you're watching this story from. Have you ever heard of a similar case in your own city or state? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your stories are important, and they can help us all learn and grow. And if you want to see more stories that show courage in the face of adversity, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps me to create more content that matters. Thank you for watching.